All right, good morning, friends, and welcome to the Conscious Contact Big Book meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. My name is David, so hello. Once again, just a blessing to be here with all of you and to have this opportunity to share the book. But before we get too far underway, I asked our friend Linda to read our fellowship preamble, and Linda, that'll be coming up for you.
Good morning, I'm Linda, and I am an alcoholic. This is the AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Linda, thank you so much, and now I'll ask everybody to, if you'd like, to join me in taking a moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholics in and out of our rooms, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So thank you all, and again, there might be one or two new people here, so I'll just say briefly, we are a line by line big book study. We go slowly through the text. Reason we do that is what I found in my experience is the typical big book meeting pattern of reading a chapter at a time tends to be, at least in my experience, a lot like trying to drink from a fire hose. And so we find that when we slow it down, it really opens up things within the text and shows us even little subtle meanings in the words that really bring this thing alive for us, and or at least for me. And so that's what we do. And another thing we do, another sort of tool that we practice in understanding what our authors intended is categorizing the text. And I'll show you, we break it down into 5 categories, and this stuff will be in the chat as well. Questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And the colors correspond to how we highlight it. And questions are orange, green for directions and explanations. Promises are blue, warnings are pink, and history I just leave unhighlighted. So again, like I said, that'll be in the chat for those people who are so interested in following along like this. Our format is I'll share on our text today, and just FYI, if you are just tuning in, we're starting on the bottom of page 81 today. Chapter is into action, and so I'll share. My hope is that we can get over to page 83. I'll keep my fingers crossed, and so I'll share till about 7 o'clock. And so for about 24 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for your comments and discussion, questions, what have you. And just FYI, the meeting, at least my part, is being recorded, and we post that on our YouTube archive. So for folks who want to re-listen or miss a meeting or something, so there we go. So, okay, so to the text. I just want to summarize what we're going to cover today. Today's reading, it begins by bringing to a close the discussion our founders started last week, which was addressing, which they're very clear about, the very personal and delicate matter of making amends for prior marital indiscretions or infidelity. In this matter, the authors avoid, they're very careful about how they approach this. They avoid sweeping generalizations and simple solutions. However, they are clear about the fact that every situation is unique, and they do establish that quote unquote good generalship, which if you that's one of those terms that if you're not taking your time through the text and really considering what they're saying, it just breezes by you. So, and we'll touch on that in a few moments. So, good generalship is essential in knowing whether or not to make a full admission of previous romantic wrongs to one's spouse or partner. In some cases, discretion may be the best approach. The authors then step back and take a broader view of the alcoholic's larger obligations to those at home who may have been negatively impacted by our disease. Here again, they're clear. Much more is called for than just sobriety alone. And even though our instincts may urge us to, as soon as we're sober, quickly sweep away past wreckage and instead focus entirely on just the new life ahead, the Big Book is pretty clear about this. It informs us that that kind of approach, it just won't cut it. It won't do. The alcoholic must take the lead, must be proactive in addressing the full impact of past wreckage, and at the same time they have to strenuously avoid any kind of blame or self-justification. And I can speak from experience that walking that tightrope, even after a long time sober, it really is, for myself, requires outside direction, clear direction of a sponsor. And I've talked in the past about I should get hats or shirts with this phrase or something. Retro amends. And retro amends are the amends I had to make for the first time I made amends, when I thought I knew what I was doing and I proceeded without careful direction from an outside party. Anyway, so our new spiritual design for living, it requires that we treat others with compassion and forgiveness while holding ourselves to a fairly rigorous standard of accountability. So again, as I said, we're on page 81, so let's take a look. We're at the bottom, and am I correct? Yeah. So we've just got a short paragraph. This is all explanation. So it's in green. Our design for living is not a one-way street. It is as good for the wife as for the husband. Okay. Before we go any further, there are a couple things going on here that I think that are important that we acknowledge. First of all, this notion of a design for living, which when you think about it, what they're talking about is it's not just a program, it's not just some steps, it's a broader, and it's not just like this activity or club or group we belong to. It's this, what really binds us together is this common design for living. And in a design for living, we're thinking of this thoughtful construction of very involved plan for how to carry ourselves through the world. It's not just about tips and tricks to avoid a drink. The thing also, I think we need to touch on here, even though we're only 2 sentences in, is it's saying it is as good for the wife as for the husband. I think what's important to recognize is it's easy to read that sentence and say, are they sort of saying that this is the wife's fault as much as the husband, or the co-alcoholic's fault, or the non-alcoholic's fault? And no, they're not saying that. And I don't think that that's what's intended. What I think is intended is, and you see this a lot in our history, when they started the program, and remember, it says earlier on in our text, it says, we think our way of living has benefits for all. Bill really envisioned that the AA way of life would become, or should become, universal. And I think a couple things. I think he was sort of caught in that early fervor, but I think also he was, because again, I think spiritual prudence would tell us that it doesn't matter what anyone else does. We can be sober and be happy, joyous, and free in whatever circumstances. And so there's that. At the same time, he was also kind of tuning into this larger vision, like this is going to impact, or could impact, millions and millions of people, which of course it has, not just through Alcoholics Anonymous, but through the affiliate 12-step programs that have sprung up since that time. So, all right. So there's that. If we can forget, so can she. It is better, however, that one does not needlessly name a person upon whom she can vent jealousy. And again, they're talking about infidelity. And I think the thing to remember is, again, they're not dictating how people who may have been victimized by our drinking, how they should respond or what's appropriate to them. I think what they're really intending in the text is to say, for those who are open to it, there is a solution, there is a way to move forward. And so, because when you think of something like infidelity or the impact that may have on a marriage, it can be like an atom bomb. And what Bill is saying is that there is a way to move forward for everybody involved. And I think that's the key part. Now, we get some important insight in this next paragraph. The entire paragraph is also in green because here we have a combination of explanation and direction. Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded, meaning that a full admission of wrongs is what he's talking about. But I think, and this is a critical part, especially when addressing the topic of infidelity, no outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Notice what he's saying there, that both will decide. So it's not the alcoholic necessarily saying, listen, it's better that we not get into any of this. I'm going to make an executive decision and not even go there. As we'll see in a moment, they advise a much different approach. Now, again, they're not advising full disclosure. What they're saying is that each situation is unique. So let's read on. Each might pray about it, having the other one's happiness uppermost in mind. Again, that might be a tall order for some. But again, it does provide a way forward. Keeping it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Here's the sentence that I blew by for, quite frankly, for decades. And it wasn't until I slowed it down and really looked at what Bill was saying there that the more important meaning came forward. And that is, good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. Well, first of all, I had no idea what any of that meant, especially since I don't have military experience. So I just, that sentence became like the Charlie Brown teacher sentence for me. It just had absolutely no meaning whatsoever. However, what is good generalship? And there's a link in the chat about this. Basically, what good generalship is, it's military skill in a high commander. Okay. And I'll say something about that. When I did some, again, I don't have military experience, but I can read Wikipedia as good as anybody. So, anyway, the thing about how generals are trained is that in the military, at least what I read, okay, I joking aside, I don't want to come off like I know things that I absolutely don't, but at least what I read. Lower level leaders in the military receive a great deal of formal training. And while there is certain training for generals, the lion's share of what generals learn is through their experience and watching other generals. Now, what's important there is, what is he saying? Good generalship. He's saying, and I thought, okay, when I thought about that, I thought, oh, that meant good judgment. No, because good judgment is coming from me. It's saying generalship. That means a person in charge. So I'll stop beating around the bush. That means a seasoned, experienced sponsor. We're not relying on our own judgment. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. The flank is an indirect approach. The flank is if an army leads from the front, the flank is the side. So it's coming in from the side where there are where they may be less ready for an attack. There's less defenses. What he's saying is, let me cut to the chase. What is Bill really saying there? He's really saying that you need to have clear direction from a good sponsor, and that sponsor may tell you, do not go to your wife and admit, or your spouse, and admit you're wrong. Tell them what you did. What you need to do from this point forward is be a good, faithful husband and not even address this thing. You need to come at it from the side. But I think what's important is we not just take that as a get out of jail free card. And what I mean is all of us. Now, I can't take that statement, that sentence, as a get out of jail free card. What I have to do is I have to work closely with my sponsor. and assess each situation prayerfully. So moving forward then, if we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. And that is green for direction. And now we have a warning. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. There was an old timer in our area who, whenever the topic of rewards of sobriety would come up, his statement was, sobriety is its own reward. Well, okay, but I think that doesn't mean the accounts are balanced. And the rest of this paragraph is explanation and direction, so it's in green. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. I won't go into detail at this point, but I'll just say that is exactly my experience. If it wasn't for my parents, my mother especially, I would not be alive today. So moving forward, though, that touches on the notion that our instincts may be to sweep the past away and get on with the business of living and just pay attention to the now or the future. And what Bill is saying there is au contraire. You owe a lot more than that to the people around you. And so now the next paragraph, I don't know if we've ever had this before, but this is clearly the case. The entire paragraph is warning, pink. So the alcoholic is like a tornado, roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken. Sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. And again, referencing the earlier statement in the paragraph above. He's like the farmer who came up out of his cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife, he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" And I'll just touch on the next sentence because it applies, it helps us understand exactly what is being said here. Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. This whole on 83, it's all explanation and direction, actually mostly direction. First two sentences, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. Why that's important is, let's go back to our story about the farmer in the cyclone cellar. Not only is he minimizing the impact, he's surrendering, because if we follow this analogy that he's using here, that Bill is using here, he's saying we must take the lead. So in this scenario, the farmer would be the one responsible for rebuilding the home. And all he's saying is, ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing? And Anyway, I won't pontificate on that. We get it. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. There is not just there's clear direction there, but there's also a clear assumption there that we have a morning prayer and meditation time in which we are seeking guidance for our day, specifically guidance that we may in all things practice patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. I've heard people raise the question, you hear this talk about principles in AA, principles over personalities, all that stuff. What are the AA principles? And it's not like the steps or the traditions or the concepts where there are 12 clearly listed principles. Principles are broader, a little looser in definition, but I will submit to you all as we bring this to a close. That last sentence there lists 4 critical principles in our life of sobriety. That is patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And so if anybody ever asks you, what are the principles? You can say, well, I know where to start. And so what do you know? We got to page 83. And I don't know if I've ever been early, but it's 6:59. So I'm going to leave it there for now because to go further would open up a section that we cannot resolve quickly. So we'll touch on next week. So I'll open it up for your comments and your thoughts and your questions and so forth. So we're talking about the amends process and what we owe the people around us, family and the people around us.